Yo, 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 what is going on, CoD Familia? It is your boy BN, aka Mr. Kingdom Builder, and today we are going to be continuing on our top stats series, however, changing it up a little bit. We're going to be looking at the most active kingdoms in the game thus far, based on data from kingdoms that are already into their next season, because remember, kingdoms that are in season 1 usually will just be labeled as normal or green activity, so you have to wait until you get to the next season, and usually towards the end of your second season, that's when the migration window will open, and typically when you'll end up seeing a particular status that is identified for your kingdom. So we're going to be looking at a couple points today, and we may even do some comparison from the S2 plus 1 through 10 and 22 through 90 kingdom data that we pulled to show you how some of that movement went when the migration period came up for these kingdoms that have gone from normal to full, full to normal, something and anywhere really in between. Let's get into it. So, first thing is first. Let's start off with the big Shibuya boos, which is the activity before and after. This actually symbolizes the first S2, or I should say the 1 plus, if I want to say that, right, for the migration period that ended up going last cycle for the kingdoms 1 through, I think it was 103, 102, somewhere around there. And we'll show that to you here. But we're going to look at how that changed from before, the after, and then the most recent, right? You can see here on the big numbers that we have 3 full, 3 crowded. There was 12 crowded now, or after that first migration window, and still the same full. You see the actives lowered because probably some of those ended up going into the crowded, and the normal barely fluctuated. However, after we pulled the data here on the 16th of November, which was after the most recent migration window finished for those kingdoms that are going in to their next seasons, you can see we've almost tripled the amount of full kingdoms. We've almost doubled the amount of crowdeds. Actives has gone up a little bit, and the normals are a lot more now, and that's just because, again, there's a lot more kingdoms now than there was back when we looked at the data kind of towards end of August, early September. Now, let's look at some individuals on how these played out. So if we start, you could see Kingdom 1 actually ended up being, I think they were around normal active, but now they're full. And that's partly because of TATM from Kingdom 2 going into Kingdom 1. That was where one of those transitions came into. And then you could see Kingdom 2 then falling down coincidentally from their full status to normal. You can see crowdeds for 3 and 4 ended up going to active, and if we scroll down a little bit, you could see, and we're just going to kind of focus mainly on the crowdeds and fulls for now, but then you can see that 29 and 30 are now crowded. They started off as normal. You can see that these 3 kingdoms, 31, 32, 33, bear in mind 31 was the kingdom launched before global release, 32 was launched on global release, and then 33 was the kingdom after global release. Those 3 started out full, but you can see the transition here, right, where 31 goes from full to crowded, now they're just active. 32 goes from full to crowded. So again, just a little bit of loss there. But then again, similarly, 33 went full, and then now they're active. Then you can see kind of 2 crowdeds that started off now normal for 34. Same thing with 36. If we scroll down a little bit more here, you could see crowded for 39, 40, 41, them dropping to normal, active, normal. Now you're looking at 42 and 43, they're crowded and full going from active, right? So one doing a 1 status jump up, the other doing a 2 status jump. Then we look at crowded, right? So this is 45 going from active, normal, crowded, which is weird because they went down and then up. But the interesting part here you have to understand is that with normal status kingdoms, you get 350 slots available, right, for migrants to come in. With active, you get 200. Crowded, even though we don't know and they haven't told us, we can give a plus or minus surmising guess that it's probably 100. And so it's usually a little bit more sought after, excuse me, for kingdoms that are normal status where alliances think they can probably have a higher chance of getting more of their players in. So that's where you would usually see kind of 2 alliances going in. Very similarly, if we scroll back up, you could see that's kind of where the change came in for 1. TA and TM being able to go into 1, probably because it was a normal status at some point once the migration opened. And there's also something about being in the OG number 1 kingdom, right? That was ever first released. So, there's a little bit of, I don't know if I want to say clout, but I think there's a little bit of excitement, right? Je ne sais quoi, if you will. I saw that in that new Beauty and the Beast movie. Josh Gad did a great job in that, by the way. Anyways, so we're going, like I said, active, active, crowded, active, active, full. Then we get to 45, where we're crowded, like we talked about, active, normal, crowded. And then 47 went from active, full, crowded. So they jumped up 2 and then went down 1 in 47. And usually if you're going full later on, I like to believe that there's a higher chance you'll stay full rather than if you were full in the beginning, and then there's just potentially a little bit more chance that can vary. But a lot of it really is dependent on how well are those alliances managed, are they allied with each other, what's the current landscape, right? Is the environment stabilized, is it not? I mean, there's a lot of factors that really go into that, probably for a later video. However, let's move down the line. We got 51 here who's crowded. They went from normal, normal, crowded. 53, active, normal, crowded. So they went down 1 and then they went up 2. Excuse me. And then we get to crowded here for 57. They went, again, down 1, up 2. You can see 65 is actually crowded. And I want to say this because for those of you who know, right, I did a project in 65. I think we went in with 7 or 8 alliances. And again, the kingdom had so much potential. And it obviously hurts. It definitely sucks to see how things ended up. But I will say this. I love that there is a group that stayed behind. I think that was with Jader, Dark, a few other people there as well. And if this status that they have now of crowded, of potentially getting some alliances to come in there, if that is from them or due to their efforts, again, I can only applaud, right? Especially for kingdoms that are able to take a normal, more so a normal, but definitely an active status as well, and work that way up to be appeasing or appealing enough for players and or alliances to go, right? You can never knock those individual, if not group efforts. Okay, then we go, 68 is now full. They went active, crowded, full, right? So kind of going up 1, excuse me, by each. And then we get to 70. 70 is crowded, right? So they go normal, normal, crowded, up 2. And then you have full for 72, right? So it's normal, normal, full. And then if we get to 76, you can see normal, active, full. So they did a 1 jump and then a 2 jump there. 81, you can see went active, crowded, full. Same thing, kind of 1 jump at a time. Very similar path to 83, active, crowded, full. And then you get active, normal, crowded. So going down 1, up 2 for 85. You can see 87 being active, normal, full, right? So going down 1 and then they go up 3. That's a jump. But again, like we talked about, the normal kingdom sometimes can be the most sought after because you have the most amount of slots available to get the most amount of players in, especially if you time it out well, right? The moment that migration hits, it's always going to give your group the highest percentage chance to get the majority, if not hopefully all of your players into that kingdom. Then we go here, 88 is active, active, crowded, going up 2 spots or up 1. We go 90, which was normal, active, crowded, going up 1 intervals each. And then now, when we get a little bit more here, you can kind of see us getting to about 119. You can see when we last looked at the data, right, you could see crowded for 97, crowded for 100, 104, 106, 109, and 111, all crowded as well. And then 118, crowded, 128, right? And this to me is a little bit more interesting because the kingdoms that are a little younger, that are getting to those kind of crowded and full statuses, those could potentially be kingdoms to look after. However, what I noticed is that once I got to about 131 or up to 130, I noticed that the variance really wasn't changing. And that's partly also because those kingdoms have yet to hit their first migration windows, which they'll end up seeing towards the finishing of their current seasons right now. And then if we go forward a little bit more, you can see 132 is active. And this is really what interests me. So you have 177 that's active, and then again, it kind of stops there. The interesting part to me, and this is something I need to ask CoD CS and potentially others, is can kingdoms get a status higher than normal once they get into their second season before the end of the season where they see the migration timeline or migration window opening? As in, will the system categorize or label their kingdom at a particular status based on the activity and health and number of active players in the kingdom overall, or power, if you want to consider that as well? Or will everyone start off normal regardless of how healthy they are? Those to me are really important questions because there's no way that you can sit there and tell me that the kingdoms from 133 all the way to 232 potentially minus 177. You can't sit there and tell me every single one of those normal kingdoms have the same amount of active players, or within the same exact range of active players, same exact range of power, and same exact range of engagement. There's just no way you can tell me that. Could you make an argument for some of them? Sure, without a doubt. But that to me is a big question, because if those kingdoms are not being labeled appropriately, then what that means is that you could potentially have some up-and-coming super kingdoms here that might have, as an example, maybe some of these kingdoms have 2,000 or 3,000 active players, and they're already at like a 10 bill, or maybe somewhere between like an 8 or 9 and 12 bill threshold, where they are in a really good situation, and then and because they're still labeled normal, they're going to get the max amount of open slots available. That's going to push that even more. To me, I would hope the system would be able to assess at the end of season 1 and then give an appropriate label based on certain thresholds, right? However, we don't know what those are. That's just how I would view it, because otherwise I just feel that it could really be very unbalanced, right? That you can really run away with that. But again, that's just my thoughts. I'd love to know what you guys think there. However, let's look quickly at some of the full kingdoms. So if we look at Kingdom 1, for example, you can see here that they have TA and TM, right? We briefly talked about this. And again, man, look, I love the fact that people are enjoying this sheet. Since I released the sheet from the video we did yesterday in the morning, right? There's been people kind of nonstop checking this out. And I can't tell you how much enjoyment and pleasure I get from that people love to come and look at this. And again, even if you're you're not using it, but you're just interested and you're curious, again, I just want to say thank you for using what was created, because for me, it was all about how can I present it in a very user-friendly way. With that in mind, let's now go back. So that's Kingdom 1. Let's look at another full kingdom, right? So we'll just take a look at some full kingdoms to round this out. So then we look at 43. If we go to 43, right, we'll do this. 43. We'll scroll down. You can see here, right, that's SK1, SK2. So I was told that this is DNS and MF. They changed their names to now SK1 and SK2. And then you still have DNS here, DNA, FAL2, right? They just kind of renamed, I guess, some alliance in that case. And then we get to the next set of full, which is 68, right? So if we look at 68, which is right here, you can see that's where EIS, LSK are at. If we look at 72, we can see, let me find, it's always easier if I just do the pin here. That's a little bit lower, I'm sure. You can see that's where TPD, Dora, Mojo is at for those alliances. If we go to 76, we can, I'm sure it might not be that hard for me to find those, but we got ROE, ROA, and Rhoda for those. And then if we look at 81, which, again, we'll just do 81 real quick. That's where Tribe, VVVV, or the two VVVs are at for those. And then, oh, you know what? Maybe I should show some power, too. That might have been easier at some point. Maybe I should just go off of this one. But if we look at 81, right, you can see here they're at 15, right, 0.6 for theirs. And sorry, let me go back and show that, too, real quick. What was I looking at? 1. So let's look at 1. So 1 is right here, right, but they're considered full. So let me minus this off. So 1 is considered full at 12.28, and you can see the alliances here. Let's just do it off this. This might be a little more educational. And then we'll look at 43. So 43 is number 1, right? They're considered full, but you can see the range there. So 1 at around 12.2, and bear in mind, take some of these with a grain of salt, because like I talked about in the video previously, we only calculated this for alliances that were at 1 billion power and above, so it doesn't account for the ones that are under that, or could be stronger players, but they're just, maybe they were out of an alliance, maybe they were in another alliance to do a behemoth, whatever it may have been. But so these are like soft accuracies, I would say. But you can see that there is a clear difference between 43 and 1, which is basically an 8 billion power difference in this soft assessment between two kingdoms that are considered full. However, there's only 8 kingdoms that are considered full, but you have 17 kingdoms here, with one of those being outside of the top 8. That's interesting to me, that this kingdom could be considered full outside of the top 8, which makes you wonder, how is the algorithm factoring in, what is the system doing to decide if this kingdom is full or not? And as we collect more data, we'll try to get more of an insight on that. But then we look at the next kingdom, which is 68, right? So 68 is here, right? So they're 11, but again, they're still outside of the top 8. Again, that's based on this, right? We don't have all the data. Now, if we had access to Home Kingdom leaderboards, I'd have a better picture to show, which, again, I hope they eventually add in Home Kingdom leaderboards. I think they should. I think there's a lot of value there. But you can see here, right, 13.5, those alliances that are listed there. If we go to 72, you can see 72 is here, right? They're inside the top 8. And then, again, those alliances there, right? 14.7 billion, 7, 5, and almost 2. Then we look at 76, and you can see 76 is here, right? Just outside the top 8 at 4.2 billion, at 7, almost 8, almost 5, and then almost 2 here. Then if we look at 81, you can see 81 is here. They're inside the top 8. So that's 3 so far inside the top 8 that we've looked at out of the 6 or 7 so far. So, but again, 7.6, 6.2, 1.7, you can see those. And then we get to 83. 83 is here. Again, they're outside the top 8. So it's kind of almost a half and half, but more outside of the top 8 than inside. But they're at 13.4. Doing 8.6, almost 5 here. And then you can see that's GG83 and GG13. And then you look at 87. And 87 is here, right? So they're inside the top 5 at number 5. 16.2 billion for their total power, kingdom power. 6.6, 5.8, 2, and then almost 1.7. That's Fang, MSFT, DGN. And then I think that's it for those 8. Yeah. So it's interesting, right? For the 8 full kingdoms, I think we had 4 in, 4 out is what it looked like. So again, it is just interesting. But again, the lowest one being as low as 17, which is Kingdom 1. I mean, that's a pretty varied power in that 8 billion range. So it is just interesting. Anyways, with that in mind, that is pretty much where we're at right now. I'll be looking to update this again once these upcoming kingdoms finishing out their Season 2 that are going to be going into Season 2 Plus once their migration windows come up. So probably in about another month. I'll do this probably sometime mid or late December so we can see what that movement looks like in the future. One of the things I may even try and do next time is if I have time, I'd love to add another kind of story-based element to this where I can reach out to alliances and figure out, maybe ask them, hey, why did you move out? Why did you choose the kingdom you were going to? Maybe to provide a little bit more depth in the storytelling. Let me know if you like that idea or anything else. Again, would love to hear. So let me know in the comments down below. That's going to do it for me. As always, until next time, I will catch you later.